What's up, NBA fans? What's up, all sports fans? This your boy JB, host of the Behind the Bench podcast network and channel. Giving a shout out to the rest of the crew: Shy, Kelvin, Jermaine, KB Film Room, Big Dog Talk Sports. That's right, that's right. And for everyone who's tuning in, thank you for supporting Behind the Bench. Subscribe to the channel. Help make this show the best that it can be. And man, I'm chuckling here. I'm chuckling because I look at this. I look at this meme right here, man, and all I can do is chuckle. You know, and it just leaves you stunned, man. It leaves you stunned. And then they'll bring up other superstars and the help that they had. They'll say, well, of course, you know, the first person they're going to go after is Jordan. They're going to say, well, Jordan had Pippen. But, you know, first of all, they didn't join forces. Second of all, Scottie Pippen was an unknown prospect drafted from a Division II school, Central Arkansas, where, you know, most basketball fans had not heard of him. People covering the NBA had not heard of him. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jordan had not heard of him. You know what I'm saying? And with Scottie Pippen and helping to develop Scottie Pippen, because Michael Jordan helped develop Scottie Pippen in practice all them years. There's no doubt about it, especially, you know, starting out as a rookie. I done read the stories about it. I done read the books about it. You know, he won 6 championships with a player drafted out of Division II. So when they say Michael Jordan never won anything without Scottie Pippen, actually, when they think they're discrediting him, actually they're elevating Michael Jordan to show you he didn't need all that superstar help to win. He can help mold a player to become the best number 2 player in the league, playing alongside of him as one prime player over 10 years that he needed, all he needed to win those championships with, in terms of a prime player. So they'll tell you Magic Johnson had Kareem and Worthy. Yes, he had Kareem and Worthy, but Magic Johnson, Kareem and Worthy didn't join forces. Magic Johnson had already won 2 championships with Kareem before James Worthy was drafted. And Magic Johnson was the quintessential leader of the Los Angeles Lakers, and he helped make everybody better from his first ever game with the team. He made everybody better. From Kareem to Worthy to AC Green to Byron Scott to Kurt Rambis. Everybody. He was the best leader in the NBA during the years that he played. No questions asked. Everybody knew it. They'll say Larry Bird had McHale and Parrish. But guess what? Before McHale was drafted by Boston, and before Boston traded for Robert Parrish was not known as a superstar. When he was playing with Golden State Warriors, he wasn't even really viewed as an all-star. Kevin McHale started off as a 6-man. He had to work his way up before he was inserted into that starting role. And that was during the mid-'80s. He was drafted in going into the 80-81 season. So he had to be developed. Larry Bird, without both of them, led their team to 60 wins, like a 36 game turnaround. At that time, that was a record, you know, established, you know, by a rookie in his first year. So Bird showed he was an unequivocal leader and best player on their team from Jump Street. So, like I said, they didn't join forces. Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, they didn't join forces either. Kobe Bryant started off as an 18-year-old. And him and Shaq had to go through playoff battles and defeat for 3 years before they rose to the top. And it wasn't until Kobe Bryant really came of age at the age of 22 that they started racking off them championships back to back to back. They had to go through the fire, man. You see what I'm saying? No shortcuts. And none of those instances that I mentioned, from Jordan to Magic to Bird to Kobe and Shaq, even Isaiah Thomas, that was an 8-year struggle from the time he was drafted before the Pistons won their first championship. You see what I'm saying? No shortcuts. But when I look at this list, Bill Russell, let's go back to Bill Russell. They'll say Bill Russell had all this help. But guess what? When Bob Cousy was there and Bill Sharman, who were the cornerstones of the Celtics as they were starting their run. I mean, establishing themselves as a franchise. They had not won a championship They was a good team, but not until Bill Russell got there did they start winning. You see what I'm saying? And then he was always the common denominator throughout their whole championship run. It was Bill Russell. And then they continued drafting players like Johnny Havlicek, Sam Jones and the like. You know what I'm saying? The Tommy Heinsohns of the world, people like that. John Thompson, JoJo White, people like that. Just constantly drafting players to continue to run. You see what I'm saying? They became a dynasty as a result of winning year after year after year after year, going through one playoff struggle, after the next. And when you look back at their history, a lot of those finals, most of the finals that they won, it went the distance. It went the full 7 games, and it came down to like the last basket or the last play before they prevailed. And that's why they call Bill Russell the greatest winner. So he didn't take no shortcuts. And they weren't blowing teams out per se. They won by a play, a possession. Tim Duncan, right? Tim Duncan, the mainstays after David Robinson retired, I believe in 2003, after they won their second championship together. David Robinson was drafted, Tim Duncan was drafted. And then they brought in Tony Parker. And then they brought in Manu Ginobili. And they became the cornerstones for the next 15 years. For the next 15 years. Before Tim Duncan finally called it a career. You see what I'm saying? No shortcuts. That's the difference. The onus was always still on the star player to lead. It wasn't about, oh man, we need to get him this, we need to get him that. No. Because you nobody has the perfect team per se. That's what make the victory so sweet. You know what I'm saying? Because you overcame. You see what I'm saying? Even if they was expected to win, there was still a challenge because no team is perfect per se. But when you look at this list right here, man, look at this list that the Hurricanes played with, man. We talking about a combination of multiple MVPs, multiple scoring champions, multiple rebounding champions, multiple defensive player of the year champions, multiple number 1 picks of their draft, their respective draft class, multiple 25 point per game scores, galore. Think about it. Let's go down the line. Let's go down the line. And people want to know and wonder how he made 10 straight finals. Not 10 straight finals, 8 straight finals, 10 finals appearances. Well, the first one, 07, okay, that's before he kicked off the super team era. So, because it's about being fair. It's about history, being presented contextually and presented accurately. But it just showed, he was on one in the finals starting out, right? Okay. But when he lost the finals in 2011 on Miami on the super team, it showed that more than likely he had a inclination to lose in championship play versus winning. Whether you're the underdog or the favorite. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so it started this pattern of he needs more help. 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 And that's been a talk really beyond past 15 years. So what I'm trying to say is you look at this list here. Let's start off with, Ben Wallace. Ben Wallace, I believe he's like a 7-time rebounding champion, 4-time defensive player of the year. His career is a lot like Dennis Rodman's. They parallel, man. Rebounding wise, Rodman probably has a slight edge, has the edge on that. But as far as defensive prowess and ability to challenge, the opponent defensively, in the paint, Ben Wallace probably is a little better than Dennis Rodman in that aspect. As far as rebounding wise, I get at the Dennis Rodman. But what I'm trying to say is, man, Ben Wallace, right? Okay. Then let's go to Shaquille O'Neal. People say, well, Shaq was old, he's past his prime, but he was coming off an all-star season. He was coming off an all-star selection his last year in Phoenix. And that's why Cleveland traded for him based off of their season. And in the postseason, in the second round, the conference semifinals versus Boston, the last 3 games of their series, Shaquille O'Neal was the best player on their team. He was playing better. He was playing better than the leader, the superstar of the team. That never happened with Jordan and Kobe. Even during the Kobe and Shaq years, it wasn't that Shaquille outplayed Kobe in the finals. It was that he had such a decisive advantage in the finals at the center position. They went to him. Why wouldn't you do it if he got that much of an advantage? But in the Western Conference Finals from 2000, 2002, that was the real finals. And Kobe showed who he was. He was the best player on the team. Shaq was the most dominant player on the Lakers. Kobe was the best player on the team because he had to be the facilitator, he had to be the best defender, and he had to close in the fourth quarters during that 3P run. You see what I'm saying? So, what I'm getting at is, man, when you see this name on this list, okay, we know Shaquille O'Neal is MVP, considered one of the top 10 greatest players of all time, right? And he played with LeBron for a season. He played with the Hurricane for a season. And they was favored to win the championship going into that season over the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers. Okay, so you go to Miami, Dwayne Wade, a.k.a. Flash, right? He had recently won the scoring title in 2009, averaging 30 points a game. Historically, he's considered one of the top 5 best shooting guards ever. A lot of people got him ranked number 3, only behind Jordan and Kobe. But unquestioned, he's top 5 shooting guard. Okay. So he led his team to the championship in 2006 and one of the best finals performances in league history, averaging over 34 points a game, right? And overcame a 2-0 deficit versus the Dallas Mavericks. And he led Miami to the championship with Shaq on the team. Shaq didn't lead him. That was Dwayne Wade. Okay. You know how they talk about Charles Barkley being the leading scorer of the Dream Team during the 92 Olympics, trying to discredit Michael Jordan? Well, guess who was the leading scorer for the Redeem Team in 2008 in the Beijing Olympics? It was Dwayne Wade. But they're not gonna say nothing about that though. But Dwayne Wade, the man was a top 3 player in the league when they joined forces in 2010. He was top 3 player in the league, bar none. He didn't have a team around him that can compete for a championship. That was different between he and the Hurricane. The Hurricane had a team around him to lead people to say they was favored to win it all. Dwayne Wade didn't have that. That's really the only difference between the two players at the end of the day. Okay, Chris Bosh, the prototype stretch forward. To this day, he's still the prototype stretch forward that teams may be looking for in that area if they can acquire a player that can acclimate that type of game into their attack. Chris Bosh, last 2 years in Toronto, he was having 24 and 10. PER, I think he was definitely top 10 PER. And he was a left-handed, one of the best elbow jumpers in the league. And he outplayed Dwight Howard in a number of games over a 2-3 year period where he scored 40 points plus against Dwight Howard. The same Dwight Howard that won three Defensive Player of the Year, 4-time rebounding champion, best center in the game. Same Dwight Howard who led his team to the finals, Orlando Magic, in 2009, beating the Cleveland Cavaliers in the conference finals. You see what I'm saying? Chris Bosh was like he's like a 7-time All-Star. Give you 24 and 10 now, left-handed now. He was a top 10 player in the game when they joined forces in 2010. He was a top 10 player of the game. Anyone would be, it would be difficult for anyone to go back and determine 10 players better than Chris Bosh when they join forces. You're not gonna find it. Okay. Then let's go to Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, number one pick in his draft, 2011. Within 3 years, Kyrie Irving led Team USA to the FIBA basketball championship. He led that FIBA and won MVP of FIBA, and then was All-Star game MVP. And by that point, he was averaging close to 25 points a game. So basically, he was a superstar, no matter what they say, because they were trying to build a team around him, and they was steadily improving. Slowly but surely, they was improving. Then the Hurricanes said, "Man, Kyrie Irving, that could be the new Dwayne Wade." So he went back to Cleveland, traded number one pick Andrew Wiggins. We never seen number one pick drafted to bring in a superstar. Never. The closest situation to that was when Orlando Magic won the number one pick of the '93 draft, a year after they won the number one pick to draft Shaquille O'Neal. And they swapped the rights to draft Chris Webber outright to acquire Penny Hardaway. But both of them was coming out of college the same year. You see what I'm getting at? Well, we never seen number one pick of the draft traded even before he put on the uniform and started practicing as a rookie. He was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. He was traded to obscurity for Kevin Love. Let's go to Kevin Love. Kevin Love was top 5 PER. He was coming off a 26.15 rebound per game season. The man was shooting exceptional from 3-point range. He was the best offensive rebounder in the NBA. He was the best outlet passer in the NBA since Larry Bird. Probably three of the greatest outlet passers this game has ever seen were Wes Unseld during the 70s, Larry Bird during the 80s, and then you got Kevin Love. Kevin Love was the first player since Moses Malone, the great Moses Malone, in over 30 years to score 30 points and to grab 30 rebounds in the same game. That man, at worst, was a top 10 player. I say he was a top 7 player. He had nobody around him in Minnesota, nobody, and he was playing in the Western Conference. People would be hard pressed to name his teammates that he had. I would say the best teammate he probably had was Kelvin Martin, but he was always streaky. And in their center, he was like a big guy. I think he was like from Hungary or whatnot. Big, one of them like Eastern European nations. And he gave you about, I think his name was Vakovic. It started with a V. See, I can't even remember his name. Vukovic, kind of big guy. You know what I'm saying? He had nobody on that team. Kevin Love, performance-wise, was a top 7 player in the NBA when he was traded to Cleveland. And the best offensive power forward in basketball. Bar none, period. Okay. So we'll go to Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose, number one pick of his draft in 2008. Derrick Rose, D Rose, won league MVP in 2011. Led the Chicago Bulls to a 61-21 record with no other scoring threat on the team that can create their own shot. His second best player was probably Luol Deng, but he scored by like maybe 16 a game as the second best player. But he led the Bulls to the Western Conference Finals. And then next year, we all know what happened. He injured his ACL. But he was an MVP level player, the most powerful driver to the basket in the NBA. You couldn't, once he got going and drove to the rack, you couldn't stop that man. And he didn't care who was in the way. He was going to score on them, dog. D Rose, Derrick Rose. Okay, he played with him for a year. And now he was, he wasn't the same player, but a lot of times, even when you're past your prime per se, you still have the talent to, carry out a performance or a stretch where you show how dominant that you were when you was in your peak. That's the type of situation that the Hurricane likes to create, where you bring in a veteran player who was once great, who may not be who they once were, but maybe a game or two, he can give you that before you focus on the next guy to break through for a series of games. You see, so you had Derrick Rose. If Derrick Rose when they got hurt, I believe Derrick Rose would have led the Bulls to the championship. I believe that. I believe that. So an MVP, #1 pick of the draft. Kyrie Irving was the best closer in basketball. Them 3 years the Hurricane and he played together. Kyrie Irving in 2016 finals, he averaged 27 points a game. Had 40 plus points in game 5. In 2017 finals, the man averaged darn near 30. But they gonna tell you about Scottie Pippen, and they gonna tell you about Paul Gasol playing with Kobe. Paul Gasol was a tremendous complementary player, post player who could score with his back to the basket in that triangle offense, but he scored 18 and a half to 19 points a game. He wasn't giving you 30 in the finals. You see what I'm saying? In the finals, Paul Gasol pretty much scored what he did during the regular season, which is great. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying the level of help that the Hurricanes had is unparalleled. We ain't even talking about all-stars. We talking about franchise level players. It's not really like 2 superstars playing together. Cool. We've seen players as the franchise, as the driving force, maybe have 1 all-star on the team and they win a championship. Cool. But multiple franchise level players, that's a whole new ball game, boss. And competition gets devalued. Because what happens is, previously in the past, the superstar was the driving force and was the determining factor if their team was going to win or not. It wasn't based on who was around him. The onus wasn't put on the role players. The onus was put on the main guy, or they said the head honcho. The super team era reversed that. It self-engineered focus away from the star being the driving force, but what is put around him. So therefore, the determination between winning and losing is no longer placed on the superstar, is whether or not the perceived notion as to whether he has enough help. And this is when people start getting passes. You see what I'm saying? And this is how you know competition has been devalued during these past 15 years. Okay, so let's go to who we gonna bring up next. There's so many of them, man. Let's go back to Ray Allen. Ray Allen, when he signed with the Miami Heat, the previous year, he had just overtook Reggie Miller to become the most prolific three-point shooter of all time. Ray Allen was coming off the bench. And in Ray Allen's prime, he can give you anywhere between 25, 26 points a game. That's what he was doing when the years he was playing in Seattle. You see what I'm saying? So he had Ray Allen coming off the bench, the most prolific three-point shooter of all time. Kyle Korver, when he was traded to Cleveland in 2016, 2017 season, midway through, he at that point was the most prolific three-point shooter of the 2010s at that stage of the decade, Kyle Korver. He has had three-point shooters who have shot 50% behind the arc for the entire year. Not just for a week or a month, for the year. Wally Zerbiak, Mike Miller. He's had teammates, elite three-point shooters, shoot over 50% from behind the arc during the postseason or in the upper 40s. I'm just speaking of from the point that the super team era started. Mario Chalmers, Mike Bibby, Carlos Arroyo, Eddie House, Shane Battier. Heck, Chris Bosh. Right? Rashard Lewis, who was averaging 20 points a game multiple years with the Seattle Sonics and the Orlando Magic. Rashard Lewis was on the Orlando Magic team with Dwight Howard that went to the finals in 2009. And he was a baller. Oh, he was a baller. Rasheed Wallace was a baller. He can get you 20, 22 points a game. The talent that he's played was off the charts. Let's go to Shane Battier was a defensive player of the year caliber player who can shoot 40% beyond from three. That's who they had on the Miami Heat team when they won their first title together in 2012. Shane Battier was on that team. And matter of fact, a lot of times Shane Battier would take on the toughest defensive assignment. Greg Oden, even though he was plagued with injuries throughout his career, nonetheless, he was the number one pick of his draft in 2007. People were saying that he was the next Bill Russell. And I'm gonna tell you what, he actually was playing like Bill Russell in college at Ohio State. He reminded you of Bill Russell. He favored Bill Russell. And he would have been a dominant center. So even though he was struggling with them injuries, but he had the ability to be dominant when he was right. That's why Miami Heat took a chance to sign him that year. So the potential was there. See, this is what I'm saying. Okay. Darren Williams. Let's bring up Darren Williams. Darren Williams, okay, he signed with Cleveland. Well, actually, they signed through the buyout during the 2018 season. Now, D. Will, in his peak form, he was a top 3-point guard in the NBA, giving you 20 points, 10 rebounds. Arguably, a lot of people said he was better than Chris Paul when he was, Utah Jazz playing with Carlos Boozer. A lot of people thought that he was the best point guard in the league. D. Will, they called him. You see what I'm saying? So we had him. He had, and I know his fans, man. I know they can be like, man, this brother tripping, man. This guy tripping. But I'm just trying to highlight, man, what this guy's been playing with. And when I say playing with, again, franchise level players, superstars, all-stars, high-level role players, premier 3-point shooters, veteran high-level players. They may not get a lot of minutes, but on any given night, they can get you a game. Rajon Rondo coming off the bench, best pure point guard of his era when it comes to playmaking and assists. You see what I'm saying? He had Rondo coming off the bench in LA. Okay. Who else we gonna mention here, man? Russell Westbrook, all-time leader in triple doubles, 2-time scoring champion, former league MVP, the Oscar Robertson of his generation, one of the most durable players the league has seen during this era. He gonna give you 150%. He was averaging a 22, 23 point, actually 24-point triple double in his 1 year in Washington, who he led to the playoffs without Bradley Beal, who was dealing with a broken hand, a broken wrist injury. Okay, he gets traded to the Lakers, man. The Oscar Robertson of his generation, dog. Think about that. The Oscar Robertson, he broke Oscar Robertson's. Russell Westbrook, if I'm not mistaken, he was the first player to literally average a triple double, not being close to averaging triple double, averaging a triple double. And he overtook Oscar Robertson. I believe that was his MVP season when he broke the triple-double record. Won the All-Star game back-to-back league All-Star game MVPs. 2-time scoring champion. Come on, man. What are we talking about, dog? Let's get to Anthony Davis, dog. Anthony Davis, they say he was a generational talent, right? This was a man coming off a 28-12 season in New Orleans. Led the Pelicans to the second round, upset Portland, Dame Dollar, and CJ McCollum. Portland had a good team that year. Pelicans swept them in the first round. Faced the Golden State in the second round with prime KD. And without DeMarcus Cousins, remember he injured his Achilles, right? And AD was beast mode, man. He was beast mode. That man was averaging like 30 and close to 20, like over 30 points, like 16, 18 rebounds, man. He was, man, my God. MVP caliber player, man. Top 5 PER. Best defender in the league as far as, from the front court positions. He got to play with that. First year playing with the Hurricane, the first year Hurricane playing with him, he led the Lakers in every statistical category outside of assists. What are we talking about, man? What are we talking about? And now he was recently traded about a week ago. And now this guy is about to play with the Don, Luka Doncic, the reigning scoring champion who averaged 34 points a game last year. Luka Doncic is one of only two players in league history that averaged 30 points a game in the postseason. The only other player who averaged more points a game in the postseason than, I'm talking about points per game, than Luka Doncic is Michael Jordan. The same Luka Doncic who led his team to the finals last year on the non-super team. You see what I'm saying, man? And you know, top PR level player. He can get you triple doubles too. He can hit the big shot. And he gets to play with that. So when you round it all up, man, this guy done played with, you know, MVP caliber guys, like 4 or 5 league MVPs, six scoring champions, you know, Andre Drummonds of the world, who's won like 4 rebounding titles in his own right. You know, he's played with some of the best young talent around, man. Brandon Ingram, number 2 pick of his draft class, dog. First year of him being brought to the Lakers. After that All-Star break, Brandon Ingram was averaging 27, 5, and 5, playing alongside a Hurricane. He was playing better than anybody on the team. Kyle Kuzma was giving them 18, 20 points a game. And they didn't make the playoffs. So what I'm trying to say is, man, when you look at it, and they still calling for more help right now. They still calling for more help. They need another playmaker. They need yet another score. When you look at it, man, the Hurricane, no matter what his fans say, he has played with more help than any superstar who's ever competed in this league. And it's not even close. He's played with way more than Bill Russell. See, it's different between, Hall of Fame distinction is different from, that's over a period of, like, to me, a Hall of Fame type player is that you playing at an exceptional level for like up to a 10-year period. But that don't mean that you necessarily played on a team that was stacked to win. Now, that's a difference. Hall of Fame is like a culmination of what you achieved over a long period of time. So when they say, oh man, he played with such and such, he played with like 4 or 5 Hall of Famers. Well, that's a byproduct. That's a revisionist point of view, but it's a byproduct of leading a team that constantly won continuously over an extended period of time. That's what produced Hall of Fame status. Even if you necessarily win a championship, if you played at an elite level for a long time, you consider, like Patrick Ewing never won a championship, but he's a Hall of Fame player, first ballot. Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, great players, man. All-time great players. Dominique Wilkins, you know what I'm saying? Outstanding players, you know. That's what Hall of Fame is, but that don't mean necessarily that you're shortcutting the game. That just means how you set a standard of play for yourself that lasted an extended period of time. But for that year, that don't mean that you was on a stacked team. See, the whole thing is thrown out of whack in terms of the narratives that have been generated over the past 10 years about past NBA history. But when you look at it at the end of the day, when it comes from number 1 pick selections of the draft, highly touted lottery level players that he's played with, MVP caliber players, franchise, everybody that I mentioned, man, 90% of these guys were drafted by their respective teams, and they try to build a team around that player, from AD to Luka, from Kyrie Irving to Russell Westbrook, especially once KD left and signed with Golden State. Kevin Love, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade. They try to build a team around those players, man. Those are franchise level players, dog. And he's played with multiple franchise players at the same time. So at the end of the day, in closing, the Hurricane has played with more help on any level than any superstar in the history of the NBA. And it's not even close. And realistically, based on all that talent he's played with, the man should have more championships than Bill Russell. Not just appearances, because it's not about getting there, it's about winning it. Just like the Super Bowl, You want to win it. You ain't just happy getting there. You want to win. That's why they call it the Super Bowl. It's the ultimate sporting event on the landscape. The Super Bowl. That's why they call it the Super Bowl. That's why they gave it the name Super Bowl when it started. So he's played with more help, man. Jordan never played with a scoring champion. I'm talking about in his prime. Some of the fans, they'll bring up George Gervin, but George Gervin was at the end. Even George Gervin said, "Man, by the time I got to Chicago, man, I was a done deal, man." You know what I'm saying? George Gervin he was at the end of the road, man. And in that playoff versus Boston, I think he played a total of like 11 minutes, if that. And that was probably the last game when Boston closed the series out. Them first two games on the road versus Boston, when Jordan ripped off the 49 points in game one, the 63 point, George Gervin wasn't getting no clock. He wasn't getting no clock. So, at the end of the day, he's played with more help than anybody in the history of this game, man. And he has a losing record in championship play. So, how can he be better than the all-time great? It ain't about stats, man. It's about winning, man. It's about winning. I'm gonna ask his fans this. Let's say he didn't play with all this help. Think about it. In 6 years, he has played with Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, and now he's about to play with Luka. That's 3 franchise players in 6 years that he's about to play with. You can't say that about Jordan, man. You can't say that about Kobe. You can't say that about Bird. You can't say that about Magic. I don't believe Kareem won a scoring title in the second half of his career when Magic Johnson was drafted. So he played. I don't think Magic played with no scoring champions. Magic Johnson played with no defensive player of the years. You see where I'm getting at, man? When you really break it down, Magic Johnson played with no rebound champions. Go back, go and look. Go back and look. Same thing with Larry Bird, people. No, he didn't play with no defensive player of the years between McHale and Parrott. And they were great players, man. They legendary. Larry Bird didn't play with no scoring champions. I'm talking about doing the age. I ain't talking about. I know Pete Maravich, was on the team, but Pete Maravich at the end, man. I mean, Pete Maravich, man. You hardly remember that Pete Maravich was on the team, dog. You see what I'm saying? And then Tiny Archibald was past his prime. Bird was the driving force. So in closing, man, I just want to make this video, and it just touched on me when I looked at this meme, man. This dude done played with so many 25-point per game scores, dog. How in the world, and in 5 different occasions, man, 5 different years, his team was favored to win it all, and they didn't even make the finals, dog. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. I think what Jordan did was exceptional, dog. When you go back and look at it, dog. They consider when he was actually winning those championships, and people got their credit, man. When they play their role, Horace Grant was getting his credit, man. Going into that second championship run, they said, man, he's our lunch pail guy. He brings tough defense in the paint. He gets tough rebound. Horace Grant got his credit, but he wasn't no superstar though. He was the third player on the team, and he played a role that helped them win. But he didn't get no 30, 40-point games in the playoff. You see what I'm getting at? Pippen never scored a 40-point game in the playoff. Never. So, See, what happens is when you point out all the help that the Hurricane has had, it comes across that you're discrediting the contribution of players on championship teams on the past who helped support the star player in winning. See, it devalues that. See, everything has gotten devalued in this process, man. That's what I'm trying to say. Before, the history stood where it stood. Everybody was viewed the way they're supposed to be viewed. Now, because of the bar being lowered in this era, it's not about talent, it's about mentality. What has happened is to try to rationalize the process, past players from decade, like in the 90s or whatnot, they're being elevated in a stratosphere that their actual role and contribution don't merit. And that's what's going on right now. And that's why these narratives have been generated around the clock. But when it comes down to it in closing, sorry for the long video. I just wanted to drop this. The Hurricane has played with more help than anybody in the history of the NBA. And there's no way that he should have a losing record when it comes to championship play. I ain't necessarily even saying that you got to be undefeated in the final. I'm not even suggesting that. But that's what made Jordan stand out, though. If he never had retired, more than likely he gonna win 8 straight. How you gonna bet if he wins 6-0 in the finals? Logically, how you gonna bet against him to lose? Only way that it would have to be proven in real time otherwise. So I'm gonna shut this bad boy down, man. And like I said, I know his fans. I know they gonna say what they gonna say, but at the end of the day, they can do their own research, man. And it's not even close. It's not even close, man. And that's why I be glad when this whole era ends, man. It's for a fan that loves competition, it's very tiresome. It's very tiresome, man. And it's actually boring. It's a boring thing. It's a boring thing. But I just want to drop that nugget. Until next time, this is JB. This is BTB. This is Behind the Bench.